Good evening, everybody. Today is June 13th, 2024. Welcome to our, sorry. Microphone on now? All right. Good evening, everybody. Today is June 13th, 2024. Welcome to the town of Cutler Bay Town Council Workshop. We're talking about our Legacy Park today. Mr. Clerk, if you could please take the roll.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Here.
Councilmember Lord.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Callahan.
Here.
Mayor Mirabah.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right. If you could all please rise with me and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very excited. Another step in our journey towards completing our park. Ralph, I will go ahead and turn it over to you for the introduction of our guest today, and we'll get started on this workshop.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight is our second workshop that we're going to have it's going to be a combination presentation. I'm going to start it off, then we're going to have our design team, and then we're also going to have our owner's rep, Emma Jones from Stantec, and then we're also going to have Michael Goldstein to discuss about the brownfield activities, and then we're going to wrap it up with our construction design assist firm, Kaufman Lynn as well. So with that, I'd like to go ahead, if we could bring up the PowerPoint presentation. And I think I could control the clicker from here, right? We'll test it. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is our June 13th council meeting. We are just a little recap from our last council workshop. The last council workshop was held on May 15th, 2024. It was, rebroadcast through Zoom and Facebook live stream. We also created the press release. We did a press release on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nextdoor, LinkedIn. Then we also had it reposted the next day through YouTube. But Mayor, members of council, most importantly, we had over 10,000 views. And that was, you could tell that the residents are very interested in our legacy project. So today's agenda, briefly, we're going to talk about the project overview and review, our park elements, community center pool, town hall, police department, pedestrian vehicle access points, pedestrian connectivity, the public transportation aspect, the existing roadway improvements, brownfield updates that I mentioned earlier, potential grants. We have, EPA, FEMA, hazard mitigation, state and federal appropriations. And then we're going to, wrap it up with a lot of the information that we know that's near and dear to the council's heart, is making sure that we have a financial update for the project approach, design assist process, cost savings approach, and the value engineering aspect of it. Then we're also going to talk about the next steps, and then certainly available for any questions and answers. So with that, I'd like to call up, Charles Michelson from our design team to review the project overview. And Mike, transfer the baton over to you. Okay.
Good evening, Charles Michelson, representing the design team, including Sauls Michelson Architects, Michael Graves, and EDSA. And again, it's a pleasure to stand here in front of you to bring you this project update. This is the master site plan that you've seen many months ago, and we stand here today that we're on track to develop the project as originally visioned. This is an overall site plan. And again, what's important about this, we'll get into detail about the individual components, that the majority of the site is being developed as a passive park and to the benefit of the community and the town of Cutler Bay. And then the development of the park is, the buildings on the park are to one side adjacent to the future retail development along Cutler Bay Road, and then adjacent to the site where the Publix exists today. So for purposes of orientation, in the park, the circle you see now represents the community center, which is positioned on the piece of property closest to the public's out parcel, being able to share a road that's over there. And as you'll see later on, even having a bus stop incorporated at that location. So it's easy access for the public. Adjacent to the community center is the swimming pool. So whether you have activities where they're contiguous activities from the community center to the pool, or whether the pool needs to operate independently on its own, it's been designed accordingly and has a wonderful overlook to the park itself. The third circle that you see up there now represents the parking garage. It's centrally located to the development of the property so that it's equidistant for people to use that facility, whether they're going for government functions or to the community center itself. And is also easy access for those people who want to use the garage to use the park. This building represents the city hall, the town hall building at the traffic circle closest to Cutler Bay. And finally, we have the police station, which again is adjacent to the city hall, representing the entrance and to the government buildings that represent the site. And finally, we do have a permanent stage pavilion, multi-purpose stage that's in the park itself for a variety of activities, not only on those days where the town has its wonderful large events, but being able to use on evenings and for a variety of outlet activities, be it movies or a band playing, and it's in a nice setting adjacent to the lake. So what are the park elements? This park is being designed as a passive park. It's not a sports park, and therefore there are 2 open fields with undulating ground, so families can play on the grass. They can have picnics in the park. They have walkways around. But the design will be very nice as a passive park. There's a water feature as part of the park. So, the premise of the design was based upon our relationship with nature down here in South Florida. So there's a large water feature in the core center of the park that'll have some boardwalks and little bridge outlooks to be able to enjoy nature and get up close to it. There'll also be an aerator in there, so there'll be a fountain and some motion to the water that's over there as well. So it'll be a very nice 3-dimensional park view. And you can see some of the images that you see adjacent to the plan are basically to tell the story of how we're imagining these activities and these parts to look like. This is the stage location. The back of the stage is adjacent to the water feature. So as people look to a band on the stage, they can actually see the water behind it. What's also nice is the field slopes in front of the stage and then actually terraces up towards the community center pool level. So it's really going to be a wonderful 3-dimensional park aspect to this, that if you have a band playing at night, people will be able to bring blankets out to the lawn or have chairs set up at different locations and be able to see the activities from a distance and from a nice elevation. This is the band building itself. We've coordinated with staff, so we know that the size is appropriate for the activities that are planned for it. This band shell also incorporates the restrooms needed for the entire park in the facility. So that's why you see the number of restrooms that you see there. It's designed with septet principles in mind. There are 2 entrances. Nobody can be trapped in any of the restrooms. Additionally, there's small storage and IT and audiovisual equipment rooms so that the different activities that occur at the stage can be controlled from that facility location. There's an interactive water feature for the kids, splash pads and playground area that's set up in its own area that can be controlled and have a nice environment for the kids to play in and the parents to sit around and be able to talk and watch the kids as they play in the park. As we discussed previously, we wanted this park to be very versatile and multidimensional. So we've planned event space there. For example, if you want to have a farmer's market or you want to have an art festival, there'll be places along the walkways set up specifically for tents and different activities to be placed in a manner that's pre-planned with power at the appropriate locations. So it's not something that has to be kind of figured out in an open field. Additionally, we provided additional space for food carts. So be it part of a festival or some larger event there, there's room for multiple food carts to pull off and not be in the flow of traffic and not have to pull up onto the lawn anywhere. And again, provide that multidimensional activity possibilities, multifunctional activities to occur at this park. Also, one of the things that we discussed from our original meetings as we looked at the project and our original meetings with the community is we know how important golf carts are here in the community. And as part of this design, what we wanted to do is we have a parking garage for cars, but what we've done is we've taken advantage of the fact that we've been working with the town and with Dade County, keeping 212th Street as a 2-lane road instead of a 4-lane road adjacent to the park. We've taken advantage of that space and we're going to be providing on-grade parking for golf carts only, provide somewhere between 65 and 70 spaces right now on something that's not paved. What's nice about this, it gives them their own area. It's safe because it's separate and distinct from vehicular travel. And we think this, again, is an enhancement that responds directly to the needs of the community. This is the pool. A very important component of this new park is the community center and the pool itself. This is a relationship of the community center actually framing the pool. So on one side of the pool is the community center. The back side of the pool is the support building, the access point for the community center. And then the right side of the pool you see is actually a higher level overlooking the park. So again, we're excited about how this fits in and the opportunities that exist at the pool for the swimming and just the socialization. The ground floor of the community center is actually a lobby and staircases and some storage. And then the main community center is up on the second level. So it's set up into 3 zones. The first zone of the community center, as you come up, not only do we have elevators up and a staircase, but it also has some of the, if you've seen those large tiered seating areas where kids get together, you see a lot on college campuses. We've introduced that into this community center as well. So that immediately brings people from the lobby up to the second floor. The front part of the community center is the administrative spaces. That has good visual control at the entrance of the facility. At the same time, though, in the evening, if there are evening activities at any of the multi-purpose rooms or the aerobics room, and there's no administration people there, that part of the facility can be locked off and secured. And then there is another admission desk where somebody can be there in the evening controlling what's happening there. Included in the community center is a yoga or aerobics dance room. There's an active adult room, and there's a large multi-purpose room that can be divided into 2. As we met with staff over time, one of their concerns was to make sure that each room had its own storage as opposed to having large storage rooms, where they had to schlep stuff from one end of the building to the other to get it in. We accommodated their needs, worked with them on the different programs and activities and the flows and the operation of the building. And we refined it to the point where we're really pleased with the result. One of the nice things as you walk from the entrance and go along the multi-purpose rooms towards the large multi-purpose room, that wall is the wall overlooking the pool deck. That'll all be glass, allowing natural light in. And as such, that corridor was designed a little bit larger. So if we want to put a couple of chairs along there or have a pre-function event out in that lobby, it's designed, again, to be that flexible space. The multi-purpose room is a large space. Again, multi-purpose indicates it's adaptable for whatever activities might occur. What's nice is we're going to have large panes of glass that open up on the side that is adjacent to the pool. Therefore, the functions of one can flow into the other if you have those kind of events. And then to the rear, the back glass walls of the multi-purpose room are also at the higher level overlooking the park. So it'll have a beautiful vista, and again, gives you a wide variety of possibilities for different kind of events in the community room as well. In the core, you see the restrooms that everybody can share and some small areas to heat up food. No cooking in there or anything like that, but certainly to be able to service the facility. The pool that you see now has been the culmination of an extensive amount of discussion and working with staff. We have a pool that'll be 7 lanes. We have a diving board, low level. That's important to the community because that's one of the favorite activities right now for the pool, and that's been incorporated in. And then we have a lower area where the stairs are shown, where people will be able to walk into the pool and do, senior aerobics or something where it's a lower level where kids can be in, because that's only 3 to 3.5 foot deep. The area of the pool where the diving board in is 12 foot deep. The remainder of the lanes are 6 foot deep. And that side of the pool will function perfectly for water polo and sports. So in a limited area, you really have hit all the buttons with regards to the activities of the way the town uses the pool and what they want to see. The relationship, the building to the left represents the office and entrance to the pool area. There's a lifeguard room and concession area that overlooks the pool area. Again, lifeguards, even when they take a break, there'll be windows there so they can visually have some sight lines seeing what's going on at the pool. We have the bathrooms, the restrooms for the men and women, and a family restroom as well in the pool area immediately adjacent to it. And then we have the outdoor showers where people can shower before they get in the pool. And if they want to clean off before they leave to go home, they can do that as well. And the appropriate storage spaces. The town hall building. Or this is the town hall plaza. Again, the town hall building and the police station represent the entry features. Between the two is a large canopy and archway that represents an entrance to the government facilities. In front of that, we have a plaza where there's some benches and the space. While on a normal day, traffic can come in as a traffic circle and have closer access to the building and actually drive through at this point to have access to the garage. This area can also easily be closed off for different events also, if we wanted to have some activity in front of City Hall and in front of the police station and then continue along. So again, multifunctional space has always been the design philosophy with everything that we looked at. And we think that this area in front of it works in a wide variety of ways, depending on the needs of the town. On the first floor of the town hall, it's set up into public, semi-public, and private spaces. As you come into the building, there's a lobby that can be open for as long as it needs to be. It has access to the council chambers, this room that also serves as a multi-purpose room for the community. Additionally, there's a large community room adjacent to the front glass that you have the ability to have different meetings that also simultaneously. And then completing the front public space of the building are the restrooms. So everything that somebody needs for this building to function on a weekend or in the evenings while the rest of City Hall is closed off has been analyzed and designed. As we move forward further into the City Hall building, that's where we start to have the building department and zoning departments there, that semi-private space where the public can go into. The private space to the back is the office areas that you see along the perimeter and some work cubicles for those two departments that can work and interact with each other. When it comes to interacting with the community itself, they can have some small huddle rooms, some small meeting rooms where people have questions about plans or process, et cetera. So people aren't going through the entire facility. They're in that semi-public area where they can ask questions, interact with staff, but they're not going through the entire facility. And again, behind the council chambers, you'll have a similar setup that you have here. There'll be another meeting room, refreshment and bathroom back there, and a back entrance and exit as well. As we go to the second floor, that becomes more, again, semi-private and then private space. As you come to the second floor, we have a break room for everybody that's within City Hall, and then a large conference room that, again, if there's a meeting for the public to come upstairs or a meeting at the administrative level for people and vendors that come into the city, that can occur at that point without them having to go back into the private offices of the administrative staff at the city. One of the things I want to point out as you take a look at the buildings, that they're laid out very efficiently and effectively. You can start to see how all the bathrooms stack on one floor to the next, the plumbing lines up. So, you know, keeping the constructability considerations into the design of something that we do from the beginning of the project, making sure that whatever we come up with can certainly be built. And then finally, one of the things that was discussed at our last meeting is creating an open shell space for the third floor that gives you the flexibility in the future of what other needs might arise. It's much less expensive to build at this point in time than to come back a decade down the road and put a third floor on a building where the columns were designed for it, but go through the expense and then the impact to the existing facilities while you try and have construction occurring above your head. The police station, again, its location mirror imaged to across from where the facility, the town hall is. The police has a lobby that's across from the town hall's lobby. It also has a separate private sally port area where people and the police can come into the building away from the public. The ground floor, and you'll see the second floor is very efficiently designed. There's a small lobby with an interview room in the front where people can come in, and then an administrative center where somebody can come up to the window to take care of their police business there. There's also, as you know, for many jobs, you need to be fingerprinted and get IDs, and we've put that function right there at the front also. So that becomes that front public area of the police department. Then as you go into the officer space, the call rooms, the sally port, there's one holding cell with a restroom in a secure area that's on the ground floor as well, and some of the supervisors. So again, what we have here is a very efficient laid out, basically a donut shaped double loaded corridor as we go along the first floor. And then continuing up to the second floor, we have some of the investigation unit rooms and the neighborhood units that are basically larger rooms with systems furniture in them. So they're occupied by multiple people. We have the administrative function and offices up there. And then there's a large conference room that would double as an emergency operations center in case there's an event within the city that needs to be controlled from the police department. Again, a very efficient layout. Again, the restrooms stack from one floor to the other, as do the staircases and elevator around the core. So again, we think this is a very reasonable design approach to the construction of the police station while getting in all of the requirements. We spent an extensive amount of time working with the police department itself, identifying those operational items they wanted on the ground floor, those that they wanted on the second floor. So again, what we're showing you today is something that has your police department buy-in. Vehicular access and connection points. What this slide is showing are two things. It was showing the passive part of the park and how people can wander through the park on a very nice day with their kids on a variety of activities. But what this slide is also showing is how this park connects to the surrounding community. So the arrows at the top, we actually have a point and designed the park to align with the sidewalk in front of Publix. As part of this project, we hope to put a speed bump and then have a sidewalk that crosses the road. So if somebody's using the park, they want to go to Publix or the shopping center to get a sandwich or get something quick and come back. It's safe. It shows it's been designed that way, so you don't have two separate projects that happen to be side by side. You basically have a project where some thought was to the continuity of one property to the next property. The same thing holds true to the future retail space in front of this town complex to the Cutler Bay side. Again, the parking garage was designed so if people from that facility need to use the parking garage, there'll be safe walkways across the street, and it'll be designed and planned for appropriately to provide that safe access, as the same thing occurs to the front side of the community center. So again, hopefully whatever goes in there are those retail facilities that support the community itself, support the activities that are occurring in this business. And by virtue of that, that flow of people going back and forth, it'll make this appear to be even a larger project than it really is, as everybody works together on the design. Now it's time for the Brownfield update.
Okay, well, thank you, Charles. And members of council, we're going to go into our next speaker now. But before we leave the next chapters, I want to thank all the town staff as well as our police major, because we had several meetings with the design team to lay out the flow as we briefed individual council members since our last workshop. So a lot of these items were familiar to you, but we wanted to collectively just give you a brief recap, and then obviously start introducing some of those park open space elements that Charles has mentioned. So next we're going to have Michael Goldstein, our brownfield expert, as I call him, an attorney who's also been working diligently with our team, and he's participating today virtually. So Michael, we'll have the clerk. I know you might have to say next slide.
Yes.
But we'll have the clerk control it. So Michael, welcome.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Manager. It's good to be here. We're thrilled to be able to support this project. Our job as part of the environmental team, along with the town's environmental consultant, Kimley Horn, is to make the property safe and healthy for this vision to be implemented, and for the town to enjoy all of the wonderful benefits and values that were just presented. That's number one. Number two, our direction from the town manager is to protect the town from environmental-based liability. And number three, we want to the maximum extent possible, ensure that working through these environmental issues and making the site safe for public health and enjoyment doesn't break the bank. And accordingly, when we get through our discussion of the technical issues and the regulatory issues, we're going to spend just a little bit of time discussing what we think are some very exciting sources of potential subsidy through federal and state grants. But our story here really begins back in the 1930s. I have 3 aerial photos up on the screen that demonstrate what this property looked like going back 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years and more. As you can see, this site was part of a very large sub-regional agricultural use. And of course, along with agriculture, either on a parcel specific basis or on a regional or sub-regional basis, we are left with a challenge of the legacy of the agrochemicals that were applied in order to make the property useful for growing and cultivating things like foods and trees and ornamentals. Let's go to the next slide, please. In July of 2023, Kimley Horn was tasked by the town manager with leveraging some earlier work done by another environmental consultant for the town property environmental assessment and remediation to expand on the testing and what we then knew about the site from a contamination perspective, to begin the process of regulatory collaboration with Durham and FDEP, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, to obtain the necessary approvals for remediation, soil management, stormwater drainage, construction dewatering, and vertical construction. These are all of the activities which you just heard so much about. And when Kimley Horn completed its initial review of the Phase 1 and Phase 2 report prepared by PAIR, which is the acronym for Property Environmental Assessment and Remediation, they determined that a much expanded investigation was necessary to better understand not just the contaminants of concern at the site, but the distribution of those contaminants on site and possibly off site in both soil and groundwater. Let's go to the next slide, please. That plan that Kimley Horn developed was submitted to Miami-Dade County Durham, our development partner. Even though they're the regulator, they're our development partner. We need them and respect their input very much. Durham responded in September of later that month, September 27, 2021. And while they approved the approach that Kimley proposed, they wanted an even greater investigation of soil and groundwater to get a much better understanding of the nature and extent of contamination from the former agricultural use. Let's go to the next slide, please. On a parallel level, as a result of direction from the town and from the town manager, we placed this site, as you may recall, into the Florida Brownfields program. We designated the site a brownfield area. That was a process actually started by Publix. We leveraged that process and executed a voluntary cleanup agreement with Miami-Dade County Durham and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection on December 16th, 2021. On the day that the town executed that agreement, the town was vested with very important liability protection against third-party claims for property damage and cleanup. And we were also qualified immediately to pursue voluntary cleanup tax credits, which is a state-based incentive that allows parties in the Brownfields program to recover anywhere from 67.5% to 91% cash on cash of the cost that's spent, eligible cost that's spent on contamination assessment and remediation, which can include certain development activities that have an environmental benefit, like placing concrete building slabs on top of contaminated soil. That will factor into the discussion shortly. Let's go to the next slide, please. What I've provided here is just a brief preview of some of the benefits that the town has already enjoyed by being in the Brownfields program. We have submitted 3 relatively modest tax credit applications in 2021, 2022, and 2023, and have been awarded significant tax credits, which have been sold and monetized, and the money is back in the general revenue fund. We'll sum those amounts up for you later in the presentation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, getting back to the technical aspect. The expanded investigation required and then approved by Durham was implemented in late 2021 and early 2022. And it was memorialized in a document called a site assessment report with a natural attenuation monitoring proposal. And what I've done here in this slide is I've just included one exhibit that shows the distribution of soil samples that were advanced at the site and sent to a lab to give you a sense for how extensive the investigation has been. It's actually got more extensive than reflected on this slide. But the historic use was intense, and it left the possibility of widespread contamination, and accordingly, to render the property safe and healthy for future use, we've put our shoulder to the wheel and implemented this very significant investigation. And what I have on the slide here at the bottom are some of the key findings and recommendations. What we see from this initial report 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, is that arsenic was detected across the entire site down to 2 feet below land surface, which is essentially where the groundwater starts. Arsenic, iron, and manganese were identified in the shallow groundwater. Not to be alarmed, these are typical contaminants of concern associated with citrus cultivation and agricultural use. No herbicides or pesticides were detected in either soil or groundwater, which was phenomenal. And Kimley Horn concluded that there was a need to assess groundwater because we didn't find the outer edge, either horizontally or vertically, of contamination at the site. So as you will see, this initial report was just the beginning of the expanded investigation. In terms of recommendations, again, Kimley Horn proposed continuing the assessment of groundwater, immediate fencing off of the site to prevent unauthorized access, the preparation of a soil management plan, which we'll talk about shortly, the preparation of a construction dewatering plan, and a very in-depth analysis of stormwater drainage in order to ensure that all of these beautiful water features that were presented to you wouldn't exacerbate the existing contamination by spreading the groundwater plume deeper or more widely off-site. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. That additional assessment that Kimley Horn proposed, which was approved by Durham for implementation, was memorialized in a report that was filed with Durham in September of 2022. And that additional investigation involved 27 additional soil borings and 7 additional groundwater wells. Durham reviewed that report just a month later and said, good, but not enough. We want even more data. And in the meantime, the next month, the town completed the construction of perimeter fencing to prevent unauthorized access to the public, which discharged our obligations to protect human health. And then shortly thereafter, in January of last year, we had an in-person or a virtual in-person meeting with Durham, attended by the town manager, the town's environmental consultant, and his firm, to meet with the regulators to discuss what had been done to date, the path forward, actual options for soil and groundwater remediation, and guidance for folding the remediation into the redevelopment to the maximum extent possible, leverage sunk construction costs to minimize incremental remediation costs. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. On March 10th, 2023, Durham issued one of soon to be several letters in quick succession approving the work that our environmental team had been conducting at the site. This particular letter is important because it approves completion of the construction of the perimeter fencing and acknowledges that the town has discharged its obligation to protect human health and the environment by preventing unauthorized access to a site that presents a risk of exposure to arsenic above allowable levels. Let's go to the next slide, please. There are a series of slides that I'm going to go through very, very quickly. They were all incorporated into yet another report filed by Kimley Horn with our input. And that report was called a Site Assessment Report Addendum with a Background Study. You may recall that at the top of my presentation, I showed you 3 slides of the sub-regional area demonstrating widespread agricultural use. And it was our working thesis at the time that the contamination we were finding on site and migrating off site was sufficiently similar to contamination within the subregion that essentially no further investigation would be required and simply appropriate measures during construction would be necessary to protect human health. Unfortunately, Durham did not agree. I'm going to go through that in a second, but really quickly, what you're seeing here on this slide is the distribution of arsenic in groundwater. And if you look at the wavy blue lines, those are called isocontours or plume contours. And what they show is exceedances of arsenic that extend beyond the property boundary. And as a result, it's the town's obligation to continue to investigate the extent of arsenic until we can find the outer extent of the contamination horizontally. Let's go to the next slide, please. The next slide shows the extent of manganese in groundwater. And you can see toward the southeast corner of the site, a small portion of this isocontour line migrating off site. So we need to deal with that as well. And the next slide. One back up and one up. Iron. I skipped over iron. That's the other contaminant. Iron, as you can see, also has migrated off-site to the east and a little bit to the south at 2 locations along our southern property boundary. Next 2 slides, please. And one more. There we go. So this is an important exhibit, and the last exhibit that I'm going to discuss in the background study. This was the result of our testing of a number of off-site locations around Cutler Bay to try and demonstrate that the arsenic concentrations at the subject property, the development site, were sufficiently consistent with arsenic everywhere off-site within Cutler Bay that, again, no further off-site assessment would be required. Let's go to the next slide. And as you will see, unfortunately, Durham didn't agree with us. They took the position that the arsenic in soil and the arsenic, iron, and manganese in groundwater are not background conditions. They require further assessment. Having said that, there were some positive responses in this letter, including that Durham agreed with our consultant that no additional sampling for lead or pesticides would be required. Those were considered not to be contaminants of concern at the property. And further, Durham agreed that the town could go ahead and file an addendum with a source removal plan. So the takeaway from this letter, this important letter dated October 27, 2023, is that the town now has some very good regulatory options to deal with contaminated soil and groundwater to protect human health and the environment and manage the remediation and construction budget in an acceptable fashion. Let's go to the next slide, please. We are almost done with the technical discussion. In March of this year, so not that long ago, Kimley Horn filed the additional assessment data that the county was asking for. And here again, they conclude that lead and pesticides are no longer contaminants of concern, and that the arsenic investigation is ongoing, but rapidly coming to a conclusion. Let's go to the next slide, please. On March 28th, Durham issued an important letter approving a final assessment plan for groundwater for arsenic and manganese and iron. And so the takeaway from this letter is that the scope of testing for groundwater is officially limited to those 3 contaminants, and that the town has successfully concluded its investigation of lead and pesticides. Next slide, please. On May 31st, not that long ago, Durham approved our soil management plan, which is a document providing the choreography for how soil is managed on site. They approved our health and safety plan. They approved our plan to use engineering controls to manage contaminated soil on site. That is a key milestone for the project. Why? Here's why. 3 takeaways. All of the contaminated soil at the property, which is significant, may now be relocated on site, including underneath building paths, parking surfaces, and walking paths. That is contrasted with a requirement to excavate and haul away all impacted soil. If you go to takeaway 3, the approval of the soil management plan likely saves the town between $5 million and $8 million in offsite disposal costs. This is probably the most significant accomplishment of your environmental team to date. And then there's another takeaway, and that is a final takeaway, that this soil management plan provides tremendous design flexibility for your planners, architects, and engineers. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, let's wrap this up on the technical side. How do we get to project completion from an environmental perspective? Well, we have to complete the soil and groundwater investigation. That plane is landing. The investigation is limited to arsenic in soil and arsenic, iron, and manganese in groundwater. We have a very good handle on what that investigation looks like and how long that will take. We think that is going to wrap up by the 4th quarter of this year. So that's number 1. Number 2, we implement the soil remedy, which involves relocation of impacted soils, again, to underneath the building slabs, the parking areas, the walkways. We may have in parts of the property a 2-foot clean soil cap, and we may do some limited source removal and some limited offsite excavation. We're going to implement an engineering control plan, and the target completion date for this is when all the horizontal development work is completed. What's important to note is that this means there will be no delay to the construction schedule to deal with contaminated soil. That aspect of the project will happen simultaneously with development. We're not going to be extended in permitting. We're not going to be held up in permitting. Our construction endpoint is not going to change a single day to deal with contaminated soil. On the groundwater side, we will have at least 1 year of quarterly monitoring after the soil remedy is completed to be able to demonstrate that whatever contaminants remain at the site, arsenic, iron, and manganese in groundwater, that plume is either stable or has started to shrink. We'll also record a declaration of restrictive covenant that restricts consumption of groundwater, which is not an issue anyway because we'll have municipal water for this site. We'll either restrict or limit irrigation on this site, and any future modification to the approved stormwater system will simply require pre-approval from the county. We think that all of this will be done within 15 months following completion of the soil remedy, but the pendency of this work will not hold up either TCO or CO. My belief is that people will be safely enjoying this project long before the groundwater remedy is completed, and that's appropriate. We talked about the declaration of restrictive covenant. It's a legal instrument that gets recorded on title. It will memorialize the engineering controls for the impacted soils and the restrictions and limitations on impacted groundwater. The target completion date for that is 4 months after completion of the soil and groundwater remedy. And then finally, the cleanup side of this project will formally and finally be complete when an SRCO or a site rehabilitation completion order with conditions, which is informally referred to as an NFA or no further action letter, issues. And that typically happens 30 days after recordation of the declaration of the restrictive covenant. Now I say normally because there's a caveat here. Let's go to the next slide. And the caveat is this, that while Publix has completed its portion of the cleanup for this site, and we are well on our way to completing our portion, there is a property owner who owns 2 pieces of the former site in the eyes of Durham and FDEP, and that's GCF Investments. So not until GCF Investments or whoever buys these 2 parcels showing on the screen from GCF Investments goes through this same process, a formal NFA, a formal SRCO will not issue to all of the property owners. But when we are done with our piece, we will be able to put our pencils down, and neither the county nor DEP will come after us to do any more environmental work. So that's project completion from an environmental perspective. Let's go to the next slide. There are two other aspects of our involvement here, your environmental team's involvement. One is on the environmental construction approval side, and the other, which I mentioned a short while ago, is on the environmental subsidy side. On the construction approval side, we want to ensure that this project move forward through permitting without a hitch, without a day or a moment's delay, and we're well on our way to doing that. There are three elements in the development permitting process that touch on contamination conditions at the property. One is a soil management plan, and I mentioned a few moments ago that that soil management plan has already been approved. That soil management plan gives your design team, your planning team, your engineers tremendous flexibility in how to build this site and how to move around the contamination pieces in terms of planning the remediation and budgeting for the cleanup. We are conservatively estimating a savings, again, of between $5 and $8 million on that alone. There's also a stormwater drainage plan review component here that we will be involved in. That's coming up soon, but this element of the process has not yet started. And then finally, just in terms of blocking and tackling, the county requires a special dewatering permit for sites that have contaminated groundwater, and we will support that. The third element of the project is the environmental subsidy element. We've already started down that road quite successfully, I might add, when we put this site under the town manager's direction into the Florida Brownfields program. We've submitted 3 annual tax credit applications that have generated $267,000 in tax credits that have been monetized on the secondary market at $243,000. We are conservatively estimating $1 million in additional tax credits to be issued that will claw back around $455,000 more into the general revenue fund. That concludes the technical presentation and the brownfields presentation. I know I've spoken for a while, and so I'm going to go through this next set of slides very, very quickly. In terms of grants, potential grants, let's move forward, please. A few, keep on going. 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 Stop. Okay. The federal government has a number of grant opportunities for communities that are cleaning up and redeveloping environmentally challenged sites that create broad social benefits. Public health benefits, environmental equity benefits, environmental justice benefits, open space and recreation and public health benefits. I could go on and on and on. This site scores high with respect to all of these opportunities and all of these federal priorities. US EPA has long had a brownfield grant program. 2 years ago, the Biden administration amped up the number and amount of grants available for brownfields redevelopment. The cleanup grants used to cap out at between $300,000 and $500,000. There are now site-specific cleanup grants that cap out at $5 million. With the direction of the town manager, we will be pursuing max brownfield cleanup grants from US EPA. But there are other important grant opportunities that we are also looking at on behalf of the town at the direction of the town manager, including a grant that was promulgated last year with a rolling deadline through November of this year called a Community Change Grant. That has there are 2 tracks under the Community Change Grant, which we think the town would qualify for. On the one hand, on the one end, there's a $3 million opportunity, and on the other end, there's a $20 million opportunity. There are 7 other federal grants that we are looking at with awards of between $2 million to $50 million, and then 3 state grants with awards in the mid hundreds of thousands of dollars to the mid several millions of dollars in grant caps. These grant opportunities at both the federal level and at the state level are highly competitive. but I've been doing this type of work for a long time, over 25 years. And it's my view that this project is the poster child for what the federal government and the state of Florida want to see in terms of their applications. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michael. And I also like to also mention our partners. As Michael mentioned, we keep saying Durham, but I also, really want to identify Wilbur Mayorga, who is the chief of the pollution and remediation section, and his staff that we've been working very closely with. And as well as, our consultant, Kimberly Horn, Bill Spinner, who's the chief geologist there. So we've got to know the brownfield process very well here. And thank you, Michael, for your expertise. Not only that, but also as we call it, the grant chase, as we like to refer to it there. So you're absolutely right. This is, I think, the poster child for what the EPA and the state want to use. So Mayor, members of council, next, if we go to the next chapters there, Mauricio?
Ralph, real quick, just a question.
Yes, sir.
Who are the grants coming from that will you be applying from? What department?
Okay, Michael, go ahead and ask that question. Mayor, if you've heard him. Which department? Well, I mean, I know from the federal level it's going to be EPA.
Okay, EPA.
EPA. We also have a possibility, as we recall, Mayor, when we were up there in DC with Congressman Salazar, there could be some direct appropriations. And also through the state of Florida brownfield, as Michael Goldstein has mentioned. And so those are the ones. And then also, we have the voluntary tax cleanup credits. As Mr. Goldstein mentioned, we received 50% of our complete reimbursement, that we have submitted. But when FDP approves, say, the examples, there was like $160,000 worth of expenditures. They approve the first 50. The other 50 will be paid when the entire site is redeveloped. As we know, we have 3 property owners, as Goldstein mentioned, us, Publix, and the Garcia family. So the fact that they say you are eligible for this much voluntary tax credits, but you're going to get 50% now, the other 50% will be the incentive for the rest of the owners when it's all completed. So that's a key component for us too. And that takes a lot of paperwork and documentation. So yes, Mayor, go ahead, Michael.
There are a few other agencies that we can apply to. For example, the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Economic Development Administration, has a $50 million grant opportunity. The U.S. Department of Transportation has a $5 million grant opportunity. We mentioned several of the U.S. EPA grants that are available. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Forest Service, has a grant opportunity that can reach into the tens of millions of dollars. And there's a modest grant opportunity from the National Endowment for the Arts. So we've got an array of opportunity for us.
And Mayor, I know that Michael's on a virtual, but I'm going to make him blush a little bit. As you recall, members of council, about 2 years ago, I went to Oklahoma City for the National Brownfield Conference. Guess who's one of the lead guest speakers? Michael Goldstein. So that's the type of team that we have. So thank you, Michael, for being part of our team.
Most welcome.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next we have, Mauricio, if you could go to the next part here. We flip through those real quick. And Mayor, members of council, what you're seeing on the screen, that will be posted on our website, so folks at home could see. Now we're going to go into the financial update, and this part here, a familiar name that the mayor and council know, but maybe some of the folks in the audience or in the virtual don't, is Miss Emma Jones. Miss Emma Jones is from Stantec. She is our owner's representative. She oversees a lot of these activities that I might not be able to participate in the meeting, but she is there as our owner's rep. So with that, Emma, if you could get online here.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. I, for some reason, cannot figure out how to put my camera on. So you just get to hear my lovely voice. So we can hop straight to the next slide. Oh, there we go.
Okay, we can see
Okay,
you
now I think you can see. Okay, there we go. Great. Good evening. Emma Jones, Stantec. So you've heard obviously a bunch of our partners speak already on this project, and the design assist process, sort of in its essence, is a team structure, and it's where the owner, i.e. Cutler Bay, engages construction firms, subcontractors, the designers, design professionals. Obviously, you just heard about all of the brownfield aspects, and they all collaborate in developing the design and the construction documents. So this is where the design and the construction overlap. And I think a really key component to this is, as I said, you heard Charles speak about the design of the master plan to date, the 12 acres of park and the 4 acres of building. And then you heard Michael speak regarding the brownfield and how, as a team, we've discussed the amount of soils that need to be removed and then remediated and stored and encapsulated. And this has been a group process through the design, as well as the remediation and the brownfield process, in order to, as you heard, we're going to be able to save the town between $5 and $8 million just in that process alone. But it also allows us to bring up the elevations of the buildings so that they can be used for emergency management facilities, et cetera. So it's really this overall collaboration, which is taking the project to the next level, but also enhancing it while providing cost savings. Next slide, please. So there's really two parts of the design assist process. The first is, as I was saying, it's designing the project. It's pulling all of the different team members together. And in the design phase of it, those team members are the clients. So Cutler Bay, the owner's representative, which is myself, the architect, Seltz Michelson, landscape architect, EDSA, civil engineer, MEPs, structural, interior, construction firm, subcontractors. We've got our brownfield experts, we have our geotech experts. That's everybody who is collaborating in the design process to make sure that we've checked all the boxes and are being as effective and efficient with the design, but also as economical as possible. And then the next phase is the actual building of the project. And all of these members stay engaged through the entire building process. And again, the design process doesn't just stop because we have filed for permit and we have the final design of the project. The designers stay engaged throughout the entire project until opening and beyond, in order to keep analyzing and looking at the costs. And along with the contractors, we're always figuring out a more cost-effective way to do things. If there's some sort of natural disaster and the wood price goes up or concrete goes up, then we pivot and we can, change various aspects as need be. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, there are a lot of pros to this. We reduce time and cost, increased efficiency. Our pricing is more accurate, better communication between all of the team members. And it really has a buy-in from everyone so that the entire project, everybody feels like they have, some skin in the game. The cons, there's a little added time and cost during the design phase of the project, but really the offset to this is the fact that you reduce change orders and any additional costs towards the end, because everybody has been engaged looking for better solutions throughout the entire process. So based on this, I'm now going to hand you over to our construction company partner, Kaufman Lynn, who are going to, as I was saying, with the design assist process, now they are going to start putting numbers to, the lovely pictures that you've seen before. And now as a group, we will start to go vertical with what you've seen on, the 2D plane.
Thanks, Emma, and good evening, everyone. And first off, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Kaufman is very excited to be a part of these beautiful renderings that have been put together by Charles and his team. As Emma said, it's our turn to start getting engaged with the pricing component of it. One of the things that we do in setting that up, you saw earlier as Charles was walking you through the different areas of the park. So one of the things that we want to ensure that we're providing every step of the way throughout the pricing is that you know where every dollar is going. And you also have, as Emma was talking about, those opportunities to pivot. We want to make sure that the way that we structure the pricing provides those opportunities to pivot along the way. If we could go to the next slide.
And sorry,
What-
members of council, is Garrett Southern from
Oh, I'm so
Quinlan?
sorry.
We know you, but
My apologies. Garrett Southern, Senior Vice President with Kaufman Lynn. I'm here with our project executive, Hans Nelson. We're very, like I said, very excited. Hans is actually really excited. Hans is a resident of Cutler Bay. So Hans, his wife and kids just down the street from the park, and they're really looking forward to using it. So you definitely have probably one of the largest cheerleaders in the room on the team here. So excited to have him here as well. So sorry about the lack of introduction. So as I was going through, what we're looking to do as far as the financial breakdown is mirror that of the project approach that Charles was talking about a little bit earlier. So as you see the color codings on, and you were talking about, Charles was talking about the community center and pool. Those kind of go as a package. If you're gonna do the community center, you're gonna do the pool with it. The parking garage adjacent to it. Separate structure, separate opportunity, the police headquarters, the town, and then of course, the town hall, and then everything to do with the park and turning those over. So we talk about a couple of different things. Number one, the pricing and the breakdown of those components. So you can see up to the right, the color coding and how we break those down. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see how we turn around and break that down into further detail. And this is what I would just call a summary sheet, quite frankly. We'll be diving into a lot more detail as we move forward. But the way that it's organized, you see across the top, we'll be breaking it down into all of the site elements. You heard a lot tonight about the brownfield, the site remediation. There's a lot of soil movement that has to happen on that site. And so what we're doing is breaking those parts up. A couple of reasons. Number one, so you understand exactly where your dollars are going. Number two, when we can isolate different areas of the park, we can really start getting into some of the details, the materials, the means and methods that we can provide some of the, not only just best practices, but also look at the cost of materials today. Emma talked about that pivot where, concrete buildings right now, they're getting expensive. Steel's starting to become, an option. Well, it always ebbs and flows. And so while we're building similar projects across South Florida, we've got our fingers on the pulse of what these projects are costing today. And 2 months, 6 months, 8 months from now. And so we'll have live documentation every time we're bringing a new deliverable to you. So by breaking it down in this way, again, not only will you be able to look at all the different divisions of construction, which are down the left side of the columns, we break it out by site work, concrete, masonry, steel, all the interior fit and finish, the electrical, mechanical, all those different components that will allow the design team and Kaufman Lynn to get together, talk about what it is that we're assuming and what it is that their design intentions are. We'll also bring construction industry experts in addition to Kaufman Lynn to the table to ensure that we're using the most competitive materials being priced today. And then we'll also bring to the table things such as not only upfront costs, but what can you expect for life expectancy, maintenance costs, those sorts of things. So you really have a comprehensive view of what it is that's going into your park. And so right now, while we're just getting engaged with breaking down, and our team is back at home working on these numbers, talking with the industry, looking at our historical numbers that we've, like I said, projects that are going in the ground right now and projects that we're also bidding on at the moment. And we'll be populating that, getting together with the design team to then make sure that we're all speaking the same language. We're all making the same assumptions. And then we'll present that to the town so that we can now start making, you can start making decisions, fully educated decisions on where the dollars are going and where you want to focus those dollars. So in summary, that's the laydown that you'll see. That's the breakdown that we'll be able to provide. And again, like Emma said, we're going to be with you every step of the way. And we'll be doing pricing exercises. So on the cons side of things that Emma was talking about, when you talk about it does cost a little bit obviously a little bit more during the design phase to have that construction industry expert along with the design phase. And it does create a little bit of time during the design phase because we're checking price along the way, making sure that we're providing those full checkpoints with you so that again, now you get to make the decisions and continue the ball moving forward. What that saves is on the back end. It saves you from the surprises. It saves you from those increases that happen. When we hit a GMP, that stands for guaranteed maximum price. You know what you're going to spend on that because we've been able to collaborate with the project team and be a part of that planning the whole way. And the quality is going to be there because we've had the right trades involved with that process the entire time, and they're familiar with it, and we're putting the right products in. So in summary, that's our engagement. We're just hitting the ground. We have to come up to speed real quick because we got a team that's at full pace right now. And I got to say, they're doing a fantastic job. It's a beautiful park and we're excited to be a part of it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And Emma, anything else you would like to wrap up on this chapter?
Yeah, if we can actually go back one slide. Perfect. So the other benefit of breaking down the project in these, obviously this approach, is that because the town hall and police station are emergency management buildings, this enables us to go after potential FEMA grants. So because we are parsing out the various aspects, we are able to then apply for additional grants rather than lumping everything into sort of the whole package. And the other part of this, which I really want to highlight, and it was one of, I think, the reasons why we really thought that Kaufman Lynn brought such a great approach to this project, was the whole idea of let's look at the park first, get the park completed, and then move on to the municipal buildings, or sorry, the community center and then the municipal buildings. We have a running joke that no one in the town really cares what Ralph's office looks like. So our goal is really to, get the site, the park up and operational first so that everybody can enjoy it, and then get the community center and the pool up and operational, and then, keep moving across the site. So by dividing out the parcels in this manner, it will allow us to look for additional money to help us achieve our goals.
All right. Thank you, Emma. If we could just move to the next chapter. I know I'm just trying to keep track of the time. It's about 5:15. We have a hard stop at 6 because we have a zoning workshop. So Emma, if we could just go through briefly the next steps. So I want to provide opportunity for the council to ask some questions.
Sure. So next steps, I thought I would just outline what we've done to date. So obviously we've brought an architecture and engineering team on board, so that is complete. We have completed the master plan that has been approved. We have completed the schematic design, and we've also brought our construction partner on board. Next slide, please. So then the next steps, as I was speaking earlier about the design assist process, and I was remiss in not mentioning just how much the town staff has been such an integral part and important part of this whole process. The amount of information, not just the town staff, the town, the amount of information we started off with that had been collected prior to sort of the kickoff of the design of this project was a yeoman's effort, and we wouldn't be where we are without all of that effort being put in by everybody prior to the design team stepping in. So thank you to everybody, because we started out with an immense amount of information, and that allowed us to progress so quickly. So in the next steps, now that we have the schematic design, we will, starting Monday, with Garrett and his team, we will be looking at a cost of what has been presented to date. What is that going to cost? What assumptions have been made? What material revisions can we make? And what scope revisions, if needed, can we make? So we'll continue this process all the way through the project. While we are looking at that, a design team will continue through the design development phase in parallel while we are also looking at the cost breakdown, cost analysis, and revisions. So the material revisions will be ongoing throughout this entire process. At the end of the design development phase, we will have another cost check. Again, like we did at the end of the schematic design phase. And what this allows us to do is it's a gut check. It's a point where we can just make sure that what has been designed is not going to be over and above the money that we have to spend. And the benefit of this is that so that when you get to the end, the GMP, as Garrett was speaking of, in other processes, you go through all of the design and you get to the end and someone provides you with the GMP and it is above and beyond what you can spend. So then you have to go back and redesign. The benefit of this process is we are doing checks and balances the entire way through. So that if we find that we are on budget during the schematic design, but we get through our design development documents and we do our gut check of the pricing and we figure out that, oh, no, the price has gone up in X, Y, and Z, we can then adjust and pivot with the materials or sequencing in order to reset and get back to where we need to be. So that will continue through the design development phase. Construction documents, again, will be done in parallel with that gut check of pricing in the design development phase. And then those ongoing material revisions, again, we will get our final construction documents. We will do another check. At that point, we will revise and hone in really on the minutia of where we can have cost savings, value engineer, and that'll go all the way up until the GMP and making sure that we are hitting the numbers that, the amount of money we have to spend on this project and making sure that we are not above and beyond that. If you want to go to the next slide, I believe we're open for questions.
So Mayor and Member Council, this completes our presentation. We have the entire team here. We have folks virtually, we have folks here in the audience, and we're certainly open for, questions.
All right, thank you. Council, questions? We're always going to start off our local contractor, sometimes referred to as the vice mayor. So Vice Mayor Callahan, I'll let you start off.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have tons of questions, but those I'm going to save probably for a meeting between you, myself, Ralph, and Emma, right, on logistical questions. So my main concern is my concern that has been since the day that we started this project, right, was to be able to live within the means. We know what our budget is, right? That's been since day one. The way the project's been presented so far is well and above what our budget is. It's painfully obvious. And what's happened now is that we've been able, the initial design and presentations and all the bells and whistles have gotten out into the public. And now this is kind of what the residents are expecting. And it's going to be a very, very difficult job to value engineer this project to be able to meet what our budget is. So I hope, and I certainly commend Kaufman, Lynn, for engaging in this process, but sooner than later, we really need to start zeroing in on budgetary figures. I mean, very quickly. The most difficult, and I've been in this business a long time, the most difficult thing is to value engineer a project. It's the most painful thing to do, right? And this project's going to require a lot of value engineering. And I certainly disagree that the project should be value engineered from the back to the front. This project needs to be value engineered from the front to the back, which means that we need to really look at the municipal buildings and start there, right? And shore those up and then phase the park in. It's always been my opinion, and I expressed this in the very beginning, that this project is probably a phased project, right? Where we're probably not going to be able to get everything that we want in the very beginning, you know? That's why I was clear that we should look at that process, right? So what's most important to us up front? The municipal buildings are the most important thing, right? When you take into consideration the needs of our town, the way our town operates, the EOC, flexibility within the spaces, the park is something that we can phase in later, if need be. With that being said, I think that we should really stand more on that approach, right? And really concentrate on the front end of the project, and then we can phase in, if need be, phase in other parts of it. I also want to be very clear that as we apply for grants, right? For grants for the EOC, FEMA and stuff like that, right? That this is not going to hold up construction, right? So, because sometimes grants can take considerably long time to be able to fund. So I don't want us sitting on the sideline halfway through construction, waiting on a grant to finish, a municipal building. But in conclusion, I would just really encourage us to get to some financial data as soon as possible, right? So that we can start putting more of a realistic idea of timing and eventually what the municipal complex and park are going to look like. Thank you.
Rest of the council? No. Your one comment, and again, I'm gonna have to defer to the experts because I'm not sure whether we need to wait for the park parcel or the construction of the building, so I don't have enough information. My hope would be that, again, that we complete the park as soon as possible, because number one, you have to move the soil off to build the other buildings on. So that's a major component of the park. So I'm really, before we lock ourselves in, I'd like to, to get the opinions of our engineers and the consultants to see whether that approach is necessary or what the best approach would be. I know the vice mayor's got much more knowledge than I do as far as building buildings and those type of things. But hope springs eternal for me is getting things done as soon as possible, especially the part which the public will begin to use earlier rather than later. Again, I don't care where Ralph's office is. But I think the part that our public will use is something that a lot of people care about. So looking to get more information on that. Ralph?
Yeah, and I think Mayor, Members of Council, I think what, we alluded to it earlier that, the permitting for the building is certainly going to take a lot longer than a park, right? The only part on the 12-acre side of the park is, we call it the stage area. There's going to be some underground utilities there and what have you. So we're just saying that to move the project along, we know we got to build the entire complex, right? In terms of, in terms of phasing. One of the things I don't know if I think we just failed to mention is that we are now holding weekly meetings with the entire team. Not only with the design team and Garrett, and the running joke what I always have with Garrett that he's like three ton pills a day now, right? Because we have the same concerns, Vice Mayor. We want to make sure that it's built to that aspect of it, because at the end of the day, Kaufman Lynn, it will provide you that guaranteed maximum price. By the time we get to that point, we have gone through and like I said, either value engineering or different thoughts we have. I mean, I know that we've been even kicking around that it might be something that it might be that we, the town, do some direct purchases instead of going through the contractor or what have you. So those are kind of different items that we've talked about. I'm very confident with the team. Kaufman Lynn has done this throughout other municipalities and very active jobs in Dade County and currently right now. So we know what the actual costs are right now. But I think that we're going to look at every single opportunity, because and it might be that you kind of cordon off the area for the park, and that just needs underground utilities there and the stage, and that could show some progress there. Our biggest thing is when we could start, I call it moving the dirt, right? And I think what you saw from Michael Goldstein, that we just got an approved site management plan. So now that gives us a good comfort level there. But you're absolutely right, Vice Mayor and Mayor, and we've had that individual meetings with council members. Every single one of you said it. They're using different words, right? But cost. We want to make sure that we're not showing the shiny toy that can't be built. Right? We certainly understand that. We understand that. I mean, the design team understands that. I don't think you see any shine, glitzer, glamour today. You know, you see that. It's a very and I know Emma uses the words all the time, but you know, she's my owner's rep. Very functional, basic, you know, four walls of town hall. Right. And then what else can we do on the outside for some type of architecture feature? So the cost is going to be our main priority. And that's the reason why we went through design assist process. That's why we have our contractor side by side here today, going through that. So we've heard that message loud and clear. And looking at all different cost savings, and you're absolutely right, Vice Mayor, we're not going to hold up if we're applying for a FEMA hazard mitigation grant, right, for hardening of the town hall or police department. It might be 2 years out or what have you. We're not going to hold up that process, but we want to get to that point of the process where we have something to submit. And that's where we're getting at right now. Just like as I mentioned before with Michael Goldstein, now that we have a site management plan, now we can start going after the chase for some of these different grants. We were waiting for the site management plan, but at the same time, you see there's been a lot of parallel activities as the brownfield teams here. It's not held up the design team at all. But now we have a clear answer for that aspect, and we have some great news because of that. We know we're going to save several millions of dollars, and even different aspects. We know that there's going to be some improvement to Southwest 212th Street. As we briefed the council, there's going to be a traffic circle, you know, on the intersection where it kind of bends 212 to 97th Avenue. We'll leverage some other funds for that as well. That could be an FDOT LAP grant like you've seen us done before, because that's going to increase the flow and connectivity on the road. That's also going to benefit this project. So that's something we've had a discussion with Charles. Well, you know what? Let me chase that grant now so we can start chasing that. So Mayor, members of council, we're very cautious of that. We understand the views that we're getting, and we see the comments that we have received, you know, throughout this process, and we welcome that community engagement. So I think that's something that we take it very seriously, and that's, you know, I'm speaking on behalf of the entire team there.
Any more questions or comments for the council?
I think, Mayor, there was another question that we received regarding the height of the building. So this zoning district that is it's located in NC1. You know, as we recall, NC1 is between the two traffic circles on Old Cutler Road, and the maximum height of NC1 is 3 stories or 35 feet. So we are, as mentioned, you know, going to go to that 3rd story of Town Hall. The parking garage is 3 stories, but we're all within the code because that is zoned NC1 district and it's 3 stories.
Okay. All right, any other questions, council? No? All right. Thank you very much for your presentations. Do appreciate it. Ralph, thank you for the presentation as well. We will have a zoning workshop, which will start at 6.
Yep. And Mayor, one more final part. I mean, just like the Vice Mayor mentioned, we're always available if needed. You know, if there's any individual, you know, meetings that you would like with the team or what have you, you know, we do that all the time. So thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.